Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Jukka Haho and I will be your host for today. I'm very excited to have you all here. Our presenter today is Jonathan Fox. Jonathan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Hi, I'm Jonathan Fox, president of Argos Systems. I've been with Argos Systems for 23 years or so. Started off doing technical support and eventually worked my way up to president, just managing the company. And so Argos, we handle the software and support for North and South America. And I'm pleased, happy to be here doing this, and thank you for joining.
Thank you, Jonathan. And now let's have a quick look at today's agenda. We'll start with Jonathan's presentation, and after that we will have a questions and answer session, and stage is yours, Jonathan.
All right, thanks, Jukka. During this presentation, we're going to go through the workflow for creating custom wall types, defining custom wall libraries, framing tools, and be able to how to set up your wall types for your environment and for building specific wall types. So I'm going to get over to BD, and I'm going to be using mainly, this is the US version of our steel framing package. And so just to kind of preface this, I've seen what a lot of designers do with Vertex, and a lot of times I keep seeing people that just like set up their walls on the fly, like as they're drawing something. They'll open up the wall, the wall dialog, they'll select a wall from the default library, and then go in and start customizing it, change the framing rules, draw the wall, then go back, pick another wall, and do it over and over again. So they keep making changes to the properties. They keep going back and forth, and so it takes a lot of time, and it opens you up to mistakes, because you might miss making a change that you're supposed to be doing every time. So obviously, if you can save those wall types, predefine them, get them saved in your custom wall libraries, then that's going to save you the time of having to go back and forth and reselect all those changes, and it's going to help prevent all those mistakes. So we're going to go through that process of creating these custom walls, custom framing rules, and then save them either into project-specific libraries or your custom library where they'll be available for all the projects that you're working on. Now we have, as you know, Vertex, we have multiple different installations. We have imperial units, we have metric units, we have wood, we have steel. And then here in the US, we still have a lot of customers using our what we call classic wall framing. So we have these like classic wall types, and then we have the newer, what we call layer-based, using the 3D wall framing wall types. So I'm going to go through kind of both of them. I'm going to start with the classic because it's easier and we don't have to spend too much time on it. Like I said, I'm in our US steel version, and when you start a new project or a new building based on a template that's set up for classic framing, it's going to automatically give you a project-specific wall library for classic wall types. So I'm just going to call this walls classic. And to access those wall libraries, we're going to go to the System tab. And I know, like a lot of installations, they have these system buttons disabled by default. So they'll have to figure out, well, we do have instructions on our documentation site how to activate that. In all the US versions, we have them active by default, so you don't have to worry about that. But I know, like in Europe or Australia, they do have these turned off by default. So just be aware of that. So I'm going to go into the library browser. And because I created this project from our classic template project, we already have, under building libraries, we already have a classic wall library included. So we can access this through this new browser, this new library browser interface. And if you right click on that folder, on that library, and select Edit Library, this brings up that old interface that everybody's more familiar with. So this is the interface that we've been using for like 25 plus years. So this works exactly the same as it used to. So you can come in here, customize these walls just like you used to do it before. So for example, if I want to make a new, let's say 4-inch wall type, I'll select this wall, hit copy, and let's call this wall A. So it has down here, we can give it a new description, wall type A. And then to customize the properties of that wall, we're just going to click the attributes button, and this opens up all the framing rules associated with that new wall type that we just created. And now we can just make whatever changes we need to. So let's say this needs to be a double stud. Say instead of using the project parameters, we're going to say this wall is going to be a fixed 16-inch on center spacing and so forth. So you can change whatever it is you want about this wall type. So we have all the framing rules, and then with these classic wall types, it also has the sheathing selections and the exterior finish selections. So this is all grouped together in one database with the wall type. So that's kind of makes it easier with these classic wall types. We're kind of limited on what we can do. We can't add more than 2 layers of sheathing, whereas that's where the one benefit of the newer wall types is you can add as many layers as you want and customize the finished materials more. But this is how the classic system was set up. So we can repeat the same process, click copy, make as many wall types as you want at the project level. But one nice new feature of this new library interface is you can also copy walls from other libraries and paste them into this library. So that was something that we couldn't do before. So if I go into the system level, architectural tools, and then if I go into classic, we have our default classic wall library. I can grab one of these. Let's grab this 350/68. I'm just going to hit copy and then go back to our project library, right click, paste, and here it is up at the top. And now I can edit that the same way as we did before, which is right up here. So that's a nice new feature with this interface. It makes it much easier to copy objects or items from one library to another. All right, so that's basically all I'm really going to cover as far as the classic wall types are concerned. I'm going to go on and let's look at the newer wall types. So I'm going to create a new project based on a template that's set up for the layer-based walls. So let's just call this walls 3D. And now I'm basing it on our template ZL. Your templates can be called whatever they want to be called. Actually, a lot of our older classic templates were called template ZL, but now in this newer installation, we separated them. So now I'm going to go back into that library browser. And now before I begin with this, I just want to kind of give an overview of these new layer-based wall types. We have this nice new web page on our documentation site. We made a video on how to customize new walls and so forth. So it goes through a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. But I also have this little diagram that kind of explains the structure of these layer-based walls. So with the classic walls, everything was all together. It was all defined with the wall. But with these layer-based walls, we actually have them kind of separated out, and it gives you more flexibility because you can modify the walls on a layer-by-layer basis and framing rules separately. So we have the wall as an assembly. The wall's made up of different layers. So the layers are basically just architectural solids or architectural volumes that are going to control where the parts are going to be when we generate the parts within that wall or within that wall layer. And so it has a height, a length, and a thickness. And then obviously you can have different textures and different looks and so forth on those layers. And then you can assign framing rules to each one of those layers. So we call them framing tools. And then that's going to control how that layer is going to generate parts when you go through that process of framing. And so when it generates the parts, then you get the sheets and the profiles and so forth. Of course, in our US installations, we're only focusing on framing and sheathing, but I know in Europe and other markets, you have much more layers in your walls. I'm not going to get into that much detail. We're really just going to kind of focus on the framing. So, and then each one of these objects, the walls, the layers, and the framing tools are all separated into different libraries. So instead of everything being together in one classic wall library, we have separate libraries to deal with. So when we're creating a new wall type, it's easier to work backwards. So we want to make sure you have the profiles and the sheets that are going to be used in that wall. Then you can set up the framing tools and select those profiles and sheets that are going to be used. And then you can create the layers if needed. I know we have a lot of the standard layers, thicknesses and sizes already in our default environment. But if you need to, you can create new layers. And then at the end, once you have all those elements already created, then you can set up your wall type, select the layers you want, apply the framing tools, and then you're ready to start using that wall. So let's go back to BD and let's go through that process. So I am in my browser, and let's start by just copying one of the framing tools. So we're starting with the system level, framing tools, wall framing tools. And let's go into our framing library. And let's say we're going to let's grab one of these exterior bearing 4-inch walls. And so I don't have a custom library yet. So we can select either copy to a new custom library or copy to a new building library. So obviously the building library is a project specific library. So that would be only available when you're working in the active project, which is useful if you're doing a lot of commercial jobs when they give you a schedule of 15 or 20 different wall types that apply to this one building. And then when you do another building, you get a completely different list of wall types. If you're working a lot of home builders have kind of standardized wall types. So in that case, you just need like a custom library in your environment that is available for all the projects that you work on. So in this case, I'm just going to start with, let's assume we're doing a commercial job. So let's make a building specific library. So I'm going to copy this wall type into a new building library. And let's just call this building wall library. Building wall framing library. So right now we're just working on the framing tool. We just made a custom copy of that framing tool. And again, I can right click, edit library content, just like we did before. And now it just jumps right into the form for editing this framing tool. So let's call this wall A. Actually, let's call it framing wall A, just so we know that this is the framing tool for wall A. And then we can go ahead and make whatever changes we want to this. So let's say this is going to be a double stud. Let's change that orientation, heel to heel. And all right, so let's say that's all we need to do for this one. Let's open that up so we can see. And then we can either copy this one and create new ones within the building specific, or we can go back to the system level, copy another one over, and then just keep going back and forth that way. So if we want to go back to the system level, we'll just come back to here. And let's say we need a 6-inch version. By the way, when you're creating new framing tools, it's always best to try to copy one that's most similar to the one that you're creating. So if you're creating a certain thickness framing, you want to copy the same. So like from 4-inch to 4-inch, 6-inch to 6-inch, or 150 millimeter to 150 millimeter, whatever a millimeter is. I don't know. Just kidding. Okay, so copying that 6-inch one, going into the building, right-click, paste, edit that library. I can see, all right, so I just scrolled down one row. I'm going to copy that up just so I can get the same naming convention. I'll paste this in. Let's say this one's wall type B, whatever it is. You can name them how you wish, and then make whatever changes you need. Let's do the same. Double stud, back to back. And then if you wanted to just copy a wall that's already here, we can just right-click, copy, right-click, paste. And we're going to save with a new key. Call this wall type C. And then we can go in and modify wall type C. So let's say this one is, let's make it 16-inch on center. All right, so now we have some custom framing tools. Now let's look at the layers. Now in this case, we don't need new layers. The layers are located back, I'm going to go back under system because I don't have custom or project wall layer libraries yet, but they are under architectural tools, wall layers, and then we have the wall layer library. And so like I mentioned, we have a lot of the standard thicknesses already. So, I already have a 4-inch framing layer. I already have a 6-inch framing layer. So I can just use those. I don't need to create a custom one. If you did need to make a custom one, it's the same process. You can just right-click on one and say copy to new custom library or new building library. For layers, I would recommend always keeping them custom. Don't make a building specific layer library because layers are very generic. They can be used for multiple buildings. So I would just recommend doing that. So let's make a custom wall layer library. And now I just copied that 6-inch layer, and then we can edit that. And then just make it whatever it is you need. I don't know, let's say 6.5 inches. Not that we're actually going to use this, but just showing the process here. I'll just call it 650. So obviously the thickness is the actual value that is going to control the thickness of this thing. Description is just a description. It's just text. You can put whatever you want there. And then the code, material code. So like when you collect materials, you'll get a line item with this material code. And then the rest of this is just the properties, what it looks like in the 2D and 3D. And then there's other things you can do here for controlling the texture, some other information about the thermal conductivity and so forth. I'm just going to skip over that. We don't even have that stuff in our US installation. Surface property, this is where you can apply a texture and then change the appearance in the 3D model. You can set it color fills, and then we have you can have an IFC property set, but they get one by default anyway, so you don't really have to do that. But if you want to customize that, you can do that as well. And we do have, so with layers, you can have it automatically assign a framing tool when you select that layer. I'm going to wipe that out, actually. In this case, I don't want it to accidentally grab the wrong framing tool. Okay, so now the next step is to set up the actual walls. So again, I'm going to go to System, Architectural Tools, and this time we're just going to go into Walls, and I'm going to grab a 4-inch exterior bearing wall. So something similar to what it is you want to create. And I'm going to copy this to a new building library. So we're going to make building specific walls. I can't see. Building exterior wall library. Okay, there we go. Then we can edit. So this opens up our wall dialog. And now we can edit this layer-based wall system using this interface. So here you can customize the architectural appearance. You can add additional layers and then apply the new framing tools that we just created. You can also apply the layer if needed. But I'm just going to go into the framing tool. So I selected that framing layer, right click, select framing tool. And then we're going to go into our building wall framing library. And then this is where we have the framing tools that we had already customized. So if I select the wall type A, so now that one is going to be applied to this custom wall. I'm also going to right click on this thumbnail and go to properties. And let's change this name. Let's call this wall A. And then description. Same thing. You can keep whatever, if you wanted to say the profile size and other information about the wall, you can keep that in there as well. Just keep in mind for the name, avoid using spaces and weird characters. You can use underscores and dashes, but just try to keep it, letters and numbers and dashes and underscores. Don't use asterisks and those other weird things. All right, and then I can repeat, do another copy. Actually, I can do it right from this browser interface too. I can select a wall from here, right click, copy. This is just another way that we can do this. Go into this library and paste. Let's call this wall-B. Okay, and then we will assign our wall type B framing tool. And then we can do the same thing, copy again, paste. Let's make our wall C. Was it this guy? Yeah, all right. That was the file name, I guess. Let me close and reopen. Edit library. Wall C. Just make sure I'm editing the right one here. And then I'm just going to change that to framing wall C. All right, so now that I'm in this project, I can go to modeling, go to the add wall function, and then we have our wall type A and wall type B and wall type C available for modeling. If I take a look at the framing tool, it's got the right framing tool. So with all the changes that we had made, and then when we generate the parts, it should just do what we told it to do. This always happens when I draw a wall randomly. I get that little thing. So now I get my back-to-back double studs, 16-inch on center. All right, so what if you need a new sheathing? Sheathing, I'm gonna go back to the library. Now, with framing, we have those layers that are kind of common. We have the framing layers that you can apply different framing tools to the same layer. So like you saw when I just selected that 4-inch layer of the wall and then applied a framing tool to that layer. With sheathing, it's a little bit different. We actually set up different layers for each different type of sheathing. And we're using kind of a common framing tool on all of those sheathing layers. So let's let me just kind of show what we have right now. If I go back to this wall layer library and let's jump to our sheets. And let's look at, okay, so like this 1/2-inch 4x8 OSB. So this is just a layer that has thickness 0.5 and it has this code, this SHW OSB. So that is just the code for this layer. Again, the layer is just the architectural volume. It doesn't know what material is actually going to be used when it generates parts. But we have a sheet library that maps this code for the layer to an individual sheet. So if I go into, again, under System, we're going to go to Materials. And then we have this folder for structural sheets. And that one is in OSB boards. It's somewhere in here, we have the OSB 1/2. I should just search for it. SHW OSB 1/2. Actually, was that the code? I have to go back. Oh no, these are the sheet codes. Sorry, I'm filtering on the wrong thing. That one, I believe, is actually just mapped to this one here. So if I take a look at this sheet, yeah. So this is the layer code and this is the sheet code. It's a little confusing, but this is how it maps. When I select that sheet layer in a wall and I tell it to generate sheathing parts, it's going to look for a sheathing material that has the same code as the layer, and then it's going to add the sheets that have this code. And then here's where you can define the length, width, and thickness of that sheet. So let's say we need a new sheet. We're going to copy this to a custom library. Again, I recommend doing this custom, not building specific, because this is more general. It's something that you might be using in multiple buildings. So I'm going to copy that sheet and let's call this custom OSB boards. And then I can edit that library. And let's say we're going to make a 4x12 sheet. So I'll just update that code. So this is the layer code, and then this is the sheet code. So we'll update that, and then the actual dimension of the part, we'll do that. So now I need to make a new layer that has this code. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go back to our architectural tools, wall layers, go find that OSB OSB, so we can just grab one of these 1/2-inch ones. Let's grab this one. I'm going to copy this to a new wall layer library because I don't actually, did I? I did. I already made one. Let's just do copy, and then I can just paste it into the one we already made. That's right, we made the 650. So I'm just going to paste it into that same library, and then I can edit that library. And let's make this layer for the 4x12 sheets. So now this code I need to change to match the layer code that we had on the sheet itself. And then this one, we have this more general framing tool that's being applied to that layer. So this framing tool is just used for how it's going to place wall sheathing on a wall. So we have this routed exterior method. So now I have this new sheathing layer available. I can go into my wall types and select that if I wanted that to be the sheathing layer on one of my custom walls. So instead of doing the 4x10 sheet, I can come in here, select my new OSB 4x12. It's going to ask if I want to overwrite the previous framing tool. Because that layer had a framing tool associated with it. It's going to ask, do I want to use that new framing tool that's associated with the layer, or do you want to keep the framing tool that was already on that layer? So usually you want to click yes. You want to say, yes, I want to use the framing tool that's assigned to that layer so that you don't end up mixing framing tools. And that's it. So now I have this new sheathing type on my wall type A. And if I go back here, modeling, let's pick my wall type A. It's got the 4x12 foot sheet. And then if I generate those, I'm gonna make sure I turn on exterior sheathing, generate the parts. And let's switch to the framing model. So now it has that 4x12 sheet. You can't see it and make the wall tall enough to show a full 12-foot sheet, but it is getting the right material there. All right. And then likewise, if you need a new profile, just spend a couple minutes on that. So, with the framing tool on the framing layer, we have certain profiles selected. And then often people ask, how do I add a new profile size? So we're going to go back to the same place, the library browser. And under system libraries, because I don't have a custom one yet, these are under materials, profiles. Now this is kind of a new thing for version 2025. If you're using an older version, there's still a button up here for profiles on the system tab, but they got moved into this library browser in 2025. So just be aware of that. But the nice thing about having it in this library browser is now we can copy profiles into custom libraries and do things a little bit easier than we used to be able to do them. So let's say I need a new stud size. Let's go down to my S sections and let's copy one of these. Let's say, no, it doesn't really matter. I'll just grab this 25, copy to a new custom library. Again, these things are more general. You don't want to make a building specific profile library. I recommend just keeping them custom so that it's available for multiple buildings. It's really only the wall types that you may want to have building specific. And let's just call this sections 2. And now we can edit this. So I'm going to right click on that folder name. We're going to go to edit profile library, cross-section library. And so here, this is where you can modify the code. So let's say this is going to be, let's make it 250s, 350, 54. And you can update, if you're changing the thickness or the weight, you want to kind of make sure you keep those up to date. This material code in the US environment, we're using this to help control the offset of dimples. So when you have different flanges or different widths and so forth, the offset of the dimple you might want to keep consistent instead of it just being on the center line. So that's a whole different topic. Sorry I mentioned that. So we're just going to keep that the way it is. And then back here, I'm going to right click on that folder name, go back to edit profile library, and now we're going to go to cross-section parameters library. And now this is where you enter the actual dimensions of that piece. So this is going to be 2.5 inches by 3.5. Actually, I think it's the other way around. 3.5, 2.5. I might be wrong. And then I forget what the number here was. I think it was 5, 6, something. And then whatever the lip is supposed to be, let's call this 0.5. And now we have a new profile. And if you go back to, let's say if you need to use that in a framing tool, we can go back to our custom framing tool. And now that new profile is available. So in our sections 2, we can select that. That's a nice looking profile. Don't make that profile in real life, please. But there you go. So that's basically the process. So now that's available. I'm not going to save that because that profile is going to be a problem. All right. So that pretty much covers what I was hoping to get through. I noticed there's a few questions coming in.
So thank you, Jonathan, for a very insightful and comprehensive presentation. So we have here a few questions. First one was that do I need to be the system admin to creating the building libraries? So in version 2025, system admin rights are also required to edit the building specific libraries. In the upcoming version, rights are not required. Even the system menu tab is not visible. You can modify the building specific libraries next version. And then there's the question about that if you set the default framing tools to wall layers, what happens if I change the layers in wall structure? Does it update also framing tools according to layer libraries? Yes, if you have defined that framing tool in layer library, whenever the layer of the structure is changed, the framing tool changed accordingly. So that's the very beneficial. That's where it's a good to set.
It actually asks you if you want to change it. It won't do it until you click yes.
Yeah, and there's the question about the panelizing rules. Okay, we didn't went through the panelizing rules, but also the panelizing rules can be modified and stored to library, and you can customize. So you can customize your own ones, and when you can have even many of them and different purposes, and you can select the correct one when creating the wall panels. What the version of BD did the layered wall framing tools became active for cold form properties? So that's maybe the question for the US version. Do we have for the steel frame or always the classic walls, or do we have the layered walls as well?
Yeah, so I think, what version do we have them both active in? It might have started in version 2024, but if you're doing an upgrade, we kept what you had before. But it's certainly, you can just go into VX settings and activate the menu, because there's a couple of places. You have to activate the functions. So in VX settings, there is a place where you can activate that menu, but then there's all the libraries too. So through that library interface, you can just go find the wall layer libraries and the wall libraries that are using this layer-based system. You can right-click on those libraries and click Activate, and then they become available through the interface. But if you weren't using the layer base before, we kind of kept the existing customers that were using Classic. We kind of kept them on Classic because they already had all this customization done, and we didn't want to disrupt anything with adding any confusing extra functionality that may not do what you used to have been doing for the past 20 years. But you can certainly activate it and play around with it if you'd like to. Sorry for that long-winded answer.
Yeah. So there's a quite detailed question about that. Can you see, Jonathan, those questions?
Yeah. Which one are you on now?
And if you have the framing, let's say start space in 20-inch two-seating layers, 40-inch more wide, and then volume start, is it possible to develop second seat following next start? So at least for me, it's a little bit difficult to follow that what actually is meant in this question. If you have the detailed questions, you can also contact us then later on.
Yeah, this is definitely a different topic. This is about controlling how the sheathing is going to lay out when you're generating the parts. We really weren't going to get into that topic.
So there's possible to define for the different layers, different spacing or different offsets and so on, but that's another topic. And
But certainly, I'd say put the question into the help desk, and someone should be able to take care of that.
Then there's the questions that do walls created as layers still show up individually in the model tree? Yeah, the model tree, you can see for example, you can see the wall like a wall, but then when you create the panel of the wall, or can you, by the way, can you see the wall layers in the model tree? Maybe not, but panel layers you can see.
Let's see. So wait, model tree. So no, the wall just shows up as one entity.
Well, and then wall panels, you can see the layers there.
Yes, panels. You can see the layers and the parts within each layer.
I think that's all. Thank you.
Right. Very good.
So thank you for your all excellent questions and participating today's discussion. That's our YouTube channel. So when you go to YouTube and right there, the Vertex Building Design Software, you will find our PD channel, and there's the playlist. And from the playlist, you will find webinars. And this webinar will be there tomorrow, I guess. And then next slide, we will have this webinar series continues, and we will have the next webinar on January 20th. It's related to Sync, our cloud service, that there's the new Office integration made, and then also new pricing options. And if you found today's topic interesting and would like to order or upgrade your package or if you have any questions, you can contact our sales team, and you can find the contact information from our website, which is displayed on the screen. So thank you again for joining us today, and have a great rest of the day. We hope to see you at the next event.
Thank you very much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Goodbye.